Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. So, start off with you, Thomas. You're in the business of what the politicians keep talking about as the savior of this whole situation. Renewable energy, we're going to get wind, we're going to get solar. But you independent power producers were virtually chased away from the industry by the government dragging its feet over signing your deals to get your money back after 5 years of investment. So what does this leave us then?
Yeah, I think it's a real challenging situation. I mean, you can see the impact on the economy. The reality is the politicians were asleep at the steering wheel for the last 5 years. Well, maybe not. They were so busy stealing money from the SOEs and from their own pockets that they didn't think about the real impacts. Now, where do we go from here? I've got a lot of empathy with the Minister of Public Enterprises. I mean, he really started asking the questions when he was not a minister at that stage about what's happening in Eskom. As he said this morning in the press interview, there's a lot of issues. There's structural issues, there's financial debt issues, and there's operational issues. And it's going to take us a good few years to get enough capacity online from IPPs to assist Eskom in shutting down enough plant to maintain it and to bring it up to standard.
Well, speaking about IPPs, if we can go out on Skype now to Stephen Larkin, the CEO of energy company Africa New Energies. Everyone says that you guys, renewable energy, that's the future. But I mean, it's still a very small, is it not 4 or 5% of the total? Most of the stuff we get comes from coal here. How likely is it that business can get it together to create enough energy to save this national power grid?
Look, firstly, it's a group effort. Everybody has to contribute to solving this crisis. It is not a crisis that the South African government itself can solve on its own. I have a great deal of sympathy for Mr. Garner and the IPP Association, many of whom are renewables players. But the problem with renewables is that this is a base load crisis. We need energy 24 hours a day. You've got a very active mining industry which works on 24-hour shifts, for instance. And the problem is that the sun doesn't shine at night when most of the demand is happening. So until you've got massive scale storage, your renewable energy is not going to solve the problem in most instances if you are an independent power producer. So IPPs need to come up with solutions that are baseload solutions rather than intermittent suppliers such as wind and solar providers without storage. So there's a fundamental need for waste to energy, but particularly natural gas, for the simple reason that natural gas plants are fast to build. Kusile and Medupi are taking 13, 15 years, and there's no end in sight to the completion of their construction and getting them to peak capacity. A natural gas plant can be built in 2 years. Kusile costing $5 per watt. A natural gas plant can be built for 80 cents. So they can be built quickly, they're base load, and they're much cheaper to build. Unfortunately, solar and wind can't offer that yet. I'm a big believer in their future, and I believe very strongly that they will be able to offer that, but not in the next 10 or 15 years.
But come back to you in the studio, Thomas. Like, where's the money going to come from? I mean, just a rider to what I was saying earlier, that as we speak, there's a court case on challenging the contracts that you finally got signed last year, as if you guys are putting a spoke in the wheel instead of trying to put lights in the ceiling.
Yeah, I think there's so many lies and deceits out there. It's really a challenge. And I think as an industry and government, labor, business, we need to get together and sit and talk behind closed doors and have a real discussion about the facts. The fact is that we will create more employment over time by going a combination of renewables and gas, and I totally agree with Stephen, is we need a combination. You can't go on solar and wind on its own. We need to bring in storage over time, and we need to bring in gas to assist. Although the issues become emotional when you talk about job losses in the coal industry, the coal truckers forum, things like that. And we need to go and sit down as people in the country and have an honest discussion about that.
Just hold that thought there, Thomas. We're going back live to the Eskom press conference where Lubabalo Mashikana has got Jabu Mabuza, the chairman of Eskom, live telling us what he's going to do about this whole mess.
Well, indeed, Chris, I am with the chairman of the Eskom board, Mr. Jabu Mabuza, who has just come out of this press briefing that has been highly attended today by journalists from all over the country. Mr. Mabuza, what was today all about?
Well, today was firstly to try in a transparent, honest and sincere manner tell South Africans exactly where the state of the system is at, and give them the background of what led us to be where we are, but also spend more time in telling them what we're going to do about it, and appreciating and acknowledging the inconvenience, the inconsistency, and the discomfort that it causes them. To also enable them to know that we have a clearly determined way of dealing with the problem, of capacity. We have demonstrated, hopefully, that notwithstanding that we've got a 48,000 installed base of electricity in the country, we are currently sitting at 28,000, and we need time and space to fix the other 10,000, given that our demand fluctuates between 30 and 36,000 at the high side. So we do hope in the next few days we'll be in a position to come back within the next 2 weeks, 14 days on the outside, come back to South Africans and share with them the details of what is it that we're going to do, how long will it take, so that they can have some predictability, they can plan for their lives in the knowledge that by a particular point we would have addressed the problem.
Mr. Mabuza, you told us what you can guarantee, but what you cannot guarantee. But what can you guarantee as Eskom?
I mean, all what we can guarantee is that we will come and identify the problem and come with a detailed plan to address it.
And Mr. Mabuza, what chances are that this current grid can fail? What are the percentage chances?
I think we have not yet reached that level where total blackout is a possibility. The stage 4 is a big jump from our 2 and 3 or 1. We're hoping that the time we're going to need and get and the resources we need to fix the plant will be able within this time to ensure that the grid does not reach a collapse.
The two power stations, Mr. Mabuza, Kusile and Medupi, are quite new power stations to be experiencing problems. And we also saw the situation there of CBZ. Where are we in terms of that?
As you can appreciate, firstly, they were built to really provide the capacity of about 10,000 megawatts in round numbers. And concomitantly, the leadership of Eskom took a decision that they will not maintain the other 10,000 equivalent, given that they've come to the end of life, there is no more support from the manufacturers, and they are old, about 50 years. So it was going to be costly, if not impossible, to fix them. But unfortunately, owing to a variety of factors, the cost has overrun on those two. The time by when they be completed has long been exceeded. The ones that have been commercially commissioned are still not producing what they were designed to produce. So we continue to address those problems.
Lastly, Mr. Mabuza, you said that we need to find solutions outside the current procurement processes. But what does that mean financially?
Look, I think it would be inappropriate to use normal general ways of addressing problem when you're facing a crisis. A crisis requires an emergency and an unusual way of dealing with unusual set of circumstances. So it is against that background that we do and are committed to various processes that are routine. There's a particular way you've got to procure, there's a particular way you've got to employ, there's a particular way you've got to deploy your capital. Unfortunately, where we're at, we're in a crisis mode, we need speed. Speed is of essence yet we need time to address this, whether it's in procuring the parts or indeed finding the skilled people wherever we may find them, or is in finding coal wherever we may find it.
Many thanks, Mr. Mabuza. That is the board chair of Eskom, Mr. Jabu Mabuza, describing this current situation that South Africans actually find themselves in as a state of crisis, saying that in the next 14 days, they, together with the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, will have answers on when Eskom actually can be stabilized. Chris, that's all I have for now. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Lubabalo there, live in Rosebank. So, Thomas there, fine words from the chairman. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I think lots of empathy for the chairman. I mean, he wasn't there when all these bad decisions were made in Eskom. The reality is the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, has regulated in the grid code that there needs to be around 19%, almost 20% of reserve margin. That means that 8 gigawatts of the 48 gigawatts installed is there for reserve margin. Now we're running on 28 gigawatts in an economy that needs 40. I mean, we're way under where we need to be. At the same time, the regulator is dragging its feet in terms of regulations around small-scale embedded generation, where businesses can install solar and batteries to sustain themselves during this crisis period and into the future. But the regulations for registration of those plants is not out yet. It's 2 years down the line. And we've got massive challenges keeping the lights on. So I really agree with Mr. Mabuza. Let's work in crisis mode. Let's get capacity and let's go and install it.
Go one last quick comment from Stephen Larkin on Skype. Stephen, to me, I mean, fine words again from the Eskom chairman, Mr. Mabuza, but to me, the question is, where's the money going to come from? Clearly, the government coffers are empty.
I think there's an historic opportunity for South Africans themselves to invest in this. There are extremely generous tax breaks for energy saving. The banks have literally got trillions of dollars of assets under management that could be deployed towards energy saving, towards renewables, as Mr. Garner stated, microgeneration, and also in finding natural gas. The government has put in place very sympathetic legislation to enable the private sector to take more of a responsibility for this crisis, and they need to do it. It's all very well complaining about Eskom and complaining about the government, but they really do have their hands tied at the moment. They can't throw more people at the problem. They don't have any more capacity on their balance sheet. It needs to come from the private sector, and it needs to come in a way that makes commercial sense, where investors can make returns. And I just want to share one last thing with you in terms of energy saving. CSIR did a study 5 years ago in Cape agricultural processing businesses, where 50 interventions were identified, each between 2 and 10 million rand, and they recovered their money, would have recovered their money in 1 year. In other words, they got 100% return on their investment, and these are multi-decade interventions. And not one of those got implemented. So there's a crying need for business people to be far more savvy and skilled about energy saving and about micro energy production, and an absolute vital need for the banks to release money so that the government doesn't have to do it.
Thank you very much, Stephen Larkin, the CEO of energy company Africa New Energies, and a lot of opportunities out there maybe for entrepreneurs and maybe even philanthropists. Thank you very much also for joining me in the studio, Mr. Thomas Garner, the chairperson at SA Independent Power Producers Association.